13th. Can we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
Mayor Beagle,
Present.
Deputy Mayor Resnick,
Present.
Councilmember Behrman,
Present.
Councilmember Gotchel, Councilmember Brendan Fox, Councilmember Sharp,
Present.
Councilmember Smiley,
Here.
quorum present.
Thank you. Changes or additions to the agenda as presented tonight. City Manager Brown.
Mayor, I do not have any changes or additions.
Assistant City Manager Benson.
Your Honor, I don't.
Any from the dais? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to the presentation portion of tonight's meeting. We have two presentations tonight. The first one is a proclamation for retired Planning Commissioner Philip Carter. Can you go up to the podium? Phil's been a volunteer on our Planning Commission for almost 20 years now, and he's moving on to greener pastures, we'll say, and we would like to honor him with this proclamation, which reads as follows. Whereas in 2001, Philip Carter and his wife Trish moved to the city of Wixom from Novi, and whereas Philip Carter earned a Bachelor of Science degree from the University of Missouri and a master's degree in manufacturing engineering from Kettering, and whereas Philip Carter presented his experience of site plan review from his knowledge while he required while working in the U.S. Navy Civil Engineer Corps, and whereas Philip Carter has spent 20 years volunteering on the Planning Commission for the city of Wixom, and whereas Philip Carter considers being part of the Village Center area development one of his greatest accomplishments while on the Planning Commission, and whereas although Philip Carter is stepping down from the Planning Commission, he will continue to work diligently with the Ford Motor Company to launch new products, and whereas while he has enjoyed serving his city for so long, Philip Carter's last meeting of the Planning Commission was May 15, 2023. Now therefore, the Mayor and the City Council of the City of Wixom hereby extend sincere appreciation for his fellowship from his fellow Planning Commission members and the staff of the City of Wixom to Philip Carter on his retirement as Planning Commissioner. Congratulations.
Thanks. Just thank you very much, Mayor, everybody. Good to see everybody again. And it's been a great time. Very fast 20 years, that's for sure. And unfortunately, with work is becoming more of a pain, and getting up very early after sometimes later commission meeting nights is getting to be kind of a pain as well. So. But again, I enjoyed my time here. I'm still going to be living here. I'll still see everybody at the Kroger, I'm sure. So
And city events.
and city events, of course. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. And again, that's 20 years of volunteering. That's a long time that he's given time from his family and stuff like that to help shape this city. So again, thank you so much. Next up, Chief Langmeyer.
Good evening, folks. Big night for Wixom PD, and I want to thank you for your time inviting us to come here and introduce you to our two newest officers and introduce you to our newest sergeant that's coming on board for the PD to replace some of the retirements that we have. So first up will be Riley Tereshenak. Why don't you introduce your family, Riley?
This is my dad,
Okay.
Tricia.
Okay. Folks, Riley here is a 2021 graduate of Howell High School. After graduating high school, she started attending Washtenaw Community College, taking some of her beginning classes there, and started here as a police service aide in October of 21. Riley really excelled at the PSA. She always wants to help. She does what's asked. She's always looking for more and more duties to do as the time came on. I'm not gonna lie to you, when we went through this promotional process, Riley kind of surprised me. I didn't expect her to end up number 1 on that list, but she did. She earned this position. She did a phenomenal job for us. And the one thing I can share with you, that can kind of be confirmed by Director Cece, who's in the back from the Oakland Police Academy. I know quite a few of the instructors there. I got more calls about this young lady and her abilities at the police academy than I've ever gotten in all my years in law enforcement. I'm very proud to have her join us. She's going to be a great benefit for the city of Wixom for years to come. Riley's dad, he's a Detroit PD sergeant, Brian. He's going to be pinning her badge on. There.
The man of action.
Yeah.
We're busy in Detroit.
Raise your right hand. I, Riley Terschenek, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Michigan, and the Charter and ordinances of the City of Wixom, Oakland County, Michigan, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties and responsibilities of police officer according to the best of my ability. Congratulations.
Ladies and gentlemen. Our next new young officer, Jacob. Let me introduce you to Officer Jacob Bloink here. Now, Jacob's got a lot of family here. You want to introduce everybody?
We'll do it quick. My dad, my grandma, 3 brothers, brother's girlfriend, 2 uncles. That's just the short and quick of it. Details just come ask later.
Yeah.
Oh no, I got my mom too.
All mine, we're good. Good seeing you.
There's a bunch. There's a bunch.
Folks, Jacob is also a 21 graduate of Howell High School, and he also attended Washington Community College when he left. He started as a PSA for us in 2022, and again, he also excelled. When we started this hiring process, we did not expect Jacob or Riley to do as well as they did, but they earned the opportunities to go on, and they both have proven us right. Jacob placed the excellent skills that Jacob has and the hard work that he put into the academy, and we're proud to add him to the police department also. Now, Jacob's father, Bill, is going to come up and pin his badge on.
I, Jacob Bloink, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Michigan, and the Charter and ordinances of the City of Wixom, Oakland County, Michigan, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties and responsibilities of police officer according to the best of my ability.
First of all, Jake, this is your great-grandfather's retirement badge from the city of Detroit. I want you to keep this with you at all times. He'll be watching over you. Congratulations, boy.
All right, last but not least, Sergeant King. Seem to have kind of a theme here. Sergeant King here started as a PSA with the police department back in 2012. Hired in 2014 as a police officer, correct? Corey is a graduate of South Lyon High School. He served in the Marine Corps Reserves. And while as an officer here, he's done just about everything we give you the opportunity to do. He's our bicycle officer. He's going to keep doing that. With fireworks coming up, we kind of need him pedaling up and down the path. He's an ID tech, an FTO, an ALICE instructor, And he's also taking over Sergeant Stawinski's spot as a team instructor for us as we go forward. Corey's work ethic, dependability are second to none. Very difficult promotional process that we put our people through, and he ended up number one in that process, and I am proud to promote him to the rank of sergeant. Congratulations.
I, Corey King, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Michigan, and the Charter and ordinances of the City of Wixom, Oakland County, Michigan, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties and responsibilities as a sergeant according to the best of my ability.
I will.
As you can tell, folks, you're probably not going to see this many cops in the meetings in the future. This is a big night for us. Thank you for your time. We appreciate it. We're looking forward to years of service from these folks and good things from all of them. So thank you very much.
We'll now take a short intermission break to have some coffee, cake, and soda. Move on to approval of minutes. We've got one set of minutes to approve tonight, and that's from the regular city council meeting of May 23rd, 2023. Motion? So moved. Any questions, comments, corrections? Seeing none, I got a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the regular city council meeting of May 23, 2023. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carries. One item of correspondence tonight, that is a notice of hearing for the customers of DTE Electric Company case U-21307. And moves us to the first call to the public. The rules of the call to the public are as follows. The public shall address the council during call to the public, which shall be included on the agenda immediately after correspondence, and again immediately after new business. The first call to the public immediately after correspondence shall be limited to agenda items only. A person shall not address the council in excess of 5 minutes unless the time is extended by a majority vote of the council present. Persons wishing to address the council shall identify themselves and their place of residence and shall state their reasoning for addressing the council, and all comments by the public shall be made directly to the council. Do we have anybody for the first call to the public? Seeing none, I'll close first call to the public. Move on to city manager's reports. We got two tonight. The first report is fire monthly report. Any questions for the chief? All right. The second is the police monthly report. Any questions for Chief Langmeyer? Deputy Mayor Resnick?
Thank you, Mayor. Chief Langmeyer, I noticed that the largest jump in Group 8 crimes for that month was the fraud, forgery, and embezzlement. Is that something dealing with tax returns, or?
No, it's just it's the basic frauds that we see across the board, all over the place. Some are at the stores involving credit cards, some are online scams. It's just the basic category that we put any kinds of scams that are out there on. It's the second biggest thing that we have there if you look at the total. And that's not unusual. It's the biggest thing that's facing police departments all over the place.
And we're still encouraging residents, even if it's an email or some phone call thing, to call it in.
Yes, we'll take a report from any of our residents, even if it didn't occur here, but they live here. We will take their report. If there's a fraud that occurs maybe in Novi or something, we'll start the ball rolling and then work with Novi to get the case handled. If it happens online and we don't know where it's at, please file a report. We have done a couple of classes across the way at the senior center for the seniors, because they're usually the targets here. In fact, we spoke about it last night at an HOA meeting also about preventative measures here. We've got our detectives training people or putting classes on at the senior center to prevent this from occurring, because that's really the best thing that we can do.
Yep. Okay. Very good, thank you.
Any questions for the chief? Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to the consent agenda. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine by the city council and will be enacted by one motion. There'll be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests, in which event the items will be removed from the consent agenda and added to the regular agenda at the end of unfinished or new business. Do I have a motion?
So.
Support. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And that brings us to new business number 1, and that is a recommendation to confirm the mayor's reappointments of Pamela Young to the Cemetery Board with a term to expire June 30th, 2028, Kent Brzezinski and Arvid Peterson to the Construction Board of Appeals with a terms to expire June 30th, 2025, Vanessa Willett to the Downtown Development Authority with a term to expire June 30th, 2027, Mary Ann Chupla, Alicia Chirella, Lisa Ferrari, and Tom Menzies to the Parks and Recreation Committee with terms to expire June 30th, 2026. Sandra Brossi and Mark Lotta to the Planning Commission with terms to expire June 30th, 2026. George Cardy and Anna Contreras to the Senior Commission with terms to expire June 30th, 2026. Stephen Winters to the Zoning Board of Appeals with a term to expire June 30th, 2026. And appoint Tom Marcucci to the Construction Board of Appeals with a term to expire June 30th, 2025. Stephen Hartman to the Downtown Development Authority with a term to expire June 30th, 2026. Chandra Okmer to the Parks and Rec Commission with a term to expire June 30th, 2024. And appoint Mark Helsom to the Planning Commission with a term to expire June 30th, 2026. Do I have a motion? All right, these are all positions that are either, their terms have expired and they wish their desire to remain on it, or new appointments to boards due to retirements or vacancies. Any questions? Councilmember Smiley.
Thank you, Mayor Beagle. I'm just curious if any of them are here. It's okay if they're not.
Yep.
Just wanted to say hi and thank you. And, which ones are you?
If you guys want to come up and introduce yourselves to us up here.
Real quick.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or long if you want.
Yeah, Steve Harvin, EDA board. Just here, and through here, and then bring up gifts.
Oh, the green girl, of course.
Very good.
You can talk into the mic, please.
Oh.
Sorry, I think you got
Go
it.
ahead, step up.
Good evening. I'm Chandra Okamura. I moved to Wixom in August 2021 with my husband, Keith. We've really enjoyed living in Wixom so far, so I'm excited to kind of, participate in the community more.
Thanks for stepping up.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, Mark Elson. I live at 3154 Joanna West, and I really appreciate the nomination for the planning commission. We really enjoy living in this city. It's over the last few years that we have lived here, we saw a lot of good positive changes here, and we're looking forward to carrying them here in the future. So thank you very much.
And Mark is a former member now of ZBA, our zoning board, and he's moving up to the planning commission. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, I got a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to confirm the mayor's reappointments of Pamela Lung to the cemetery board. There's a term to expire June 30th, 2028. Kent Brzezinski and Arvid Peterson to the construction board of appeals with terms to expire June 30th, 2025. Vanessa Willett to the DDA authority with a term to expire June 30th, 2027. Marianne Chupa, Alicia Chirella, Lisa Ferrari, and Tom Menzies to the Parks and Recreation Commission with terms to expire June 30th, 2026. Sandro Grassi and Mark Lotta to the Planning Commission with terms to expire June 30th, 2026. George Cardy and Anna Contreras to the Senior Citizens Commission with terms to expire June 30th, 2026. Stephen Winters to the Zoning Board of Appeals with a term to expire June 30th, 2026. And appoint Tom Marcucci to the Construction Board of Appeals with a term to expire June 30th, 2025. Stephen Hartman to the Downtown Development Authority with a term to expire June 30th, 2026. Shanda Okumura to the Parks and Rec Commission with a term to expire June 30th, 2024. And appoint Mark Helsum to the Planning Commission with a term to expire June 30th, 2026. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And thank you to all our new members of boards and commissions. Appreciate it. New business number 2 is a recommendation from the Tax Abatement Review Committee to adopt a revised policy for consideration of PA 198 Industrial Facilities Tax Abatements dated June 30th, 2023. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Support.
Assistant City Manager Benson.
Good evening, Mayor, members of City Council. So the city has a history of issuing or considering issuance of industrial facility tax abatements via PA 198. It's a pretty common incentive tool to attract and retain industrial-related businesses. Over the years, we have used it numerous times. The current policy, as set by City Council, was updated in 2010. The original policy was from 1989. Given the amount of time that's passed since 2010, as well as a recommendation through the RRC, Redevelopment Ready Communities process, staff began the process of taking a look at this and starting a conversation with the Tax Abatement Review Committee to consider updates to that policy for your ultimate review and consideration. The main things that we found are that other communities around us, specifically Auburn Hills, Novi, Lyon Township, I'd say probably our most common competitors, are becoming more restrictive with PA 198 tax abatements. I think that's a factor of, as the build out of the area increases, there's less of a need to attract everything and being more specific to the specific kinds of projects that you'd like. So the length and the minimum investment requirements for some of the kind of most significant things that we noticed. We also identified a couple areas, such as how are remote positions treated and reviewed as a part of PA 198 abatement requests. What is the minimum threshold? We recommend to increase from $1 million to $5 million of investment, as well as a minimum of 20 jobs. And we also did some cleanup work in terms of clarifying the timing between site plan approval from Planning Commission and tax abatement approval from City Council. Just to better clarify how that process goes from a step-by-step standpoint, that they should be looking at both pieces when looking to have a project incentivized by the city. The last piece, which was a late addition by the City Attorney's Office, was a recommendation to strike the specific language that tax abatements will not be considered under any circumstances if the applicant has pending litigation against the city. She considers that to be a First Amendment potential violation, and there are lawsuits in other communities and higher courts dealing with that issue right now. So her recommendation was to soften that language, which was in the version that we supplied to you within the revised version of the agenda packet. The Tax Abatement Review Committee reviewed this back in May and ultimately recommended approval for you all tonight. If you have any questions, happy to dive into those.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Assistant City Manager Benson. I like the competitive information that you provided from the surrounding communities too. I noticed that now we don't specifically have a percentage of abatement specified in the new policy. Is that left up to the Tax Abatement Committee then when they review the applicant?
My understanding of how PA 198 tax abatement works is it's really not about the percentage. You really govern the length of the abatement itself. So it's not, okay, we'll give you, it's not up to 50%, it's a 50% abatement, and then you just pick the number of years anywhere from 1 to 12. That's the primary piece.
So it's not like we'd say 25% of the 12 years or whatever.
Correct.
It's 50%.
Correct.
Okay, all right. Thank you. It was great information.
Councilmember Grenlund Fox?
Thank you. I don't have any questions per se, but I would like to thank you for doing this. I think it's long overdue, and it's a much better, cleaner, clearer policy.
Councilmember Sherb?
Thank you, Mayor. I had a little trouble following, moving from the summary to the actual documents without a red line version in there, which usually we like, but I think I'm speaking for council. So I'm taking the summary and trying to interpret it. I have to admit I didn't compare word for word all the way through 8 pages of documents. But one question I do have. We talked a recent tax abatement, probably the last one we saw in council was a property on Alpha Drive, I believe. And one of the comments was we weren't creating any new jobs. We were just shuffling them around from community to community. They weren't growing, they were just moving their facility. And we said we'd like to, as we get more restrictive, that's one of the things to consider. Is there anything in here that addresses that particular? Because I think that language, if I recall, is already in the kind of the state public policy, public act about creating new jobs, but there's some flexibility always. So we haven't really addressed that specifically, other than we'll think about it more when we go forward. As we get more restrictive, all those things come into play.
Yes,
so
I would agree with that.
About that.
We did not, add any hard and fast language to that effect. But you bring up a great point that I do want to highlight, that this policy is most important in application for us, city management, to be able to have conversations with folks who want to ask us, hey, do you think I could apply for an abatement? This gives us a structure to say, well, based on this policy, yes or no. But ultimately, these decisions are always at your discretion, guided by this policy, but not necessarily restricted. There are circumstances, as you just mentioned, where something may not align perfectly with the policy, but there are other aspects of the project that you all may still determine that this is worth incentivizing. So yes, there is flexibility, and you do have complete discretion of whether these are granted for at really any of those kind of circumstances.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Anybody else? Any questions? Councilmember Gatchel?
Thank you. I really like the scoring rubric that was provided for Lyman Township. And they have different things included in there, but I know one common refrain that comes up reading minutes from tax abatement is discussing trying to use Walled Lake students or graduates for stuff and engaging with the technical school. Is there, I didn't notice a scoring rubric in our package. Is there anything that will be tied into that specifically, or are we going to leave it at the, we really hope that you will use them?
This policy that's proposed does not make any specific changes to that. As of now, it is still addressed, at least in part through the policy, you know, that there's a benefit if the applicant expresses the willingness to do that. The agreement that you ultimately approve for abatements also kind of specifies that. Now, to what degree do we, you know, can or do we hold them to, you have to work with the schools, or if you don't, you don't get 5 students to work for you over in the tax abatement. It's not at that point, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend doing so because it's a two-way street in our experience. We have
and dictate to kids that they have to work somewhere. I get that. It's just, I feel like we've been told by some people that have received abatements, oh, they'll be big players and helpful, and I don't think we've seen that from them. So I was hoping to not carve it into stone, but do something shy of that where there is some bit of authority on our part to hold them to a promise like that, not just come in, sell a load of garbage to get their abatement and take off. So,
understood.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I got a motion and a second to approve the recommendation from the Tax Abatement Review Committee to adopt the revised policy for consideration of PA 198 Industrial Facilities Tax Abatements dated June 13, 2023. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. New business number 3 is a recommendation from the Tax Abatement Review Committee to adopt a policy for consideration of PA 210 and PA 255 commercial tax abatements dated June 13, 2023. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
City Manager Benson?
Thank you, Mayor. So this item, similar but a little different than our PA 198 abatement policy. I'll try to be brief. The long story short is that City Council approved the creation of a PA 210 Commercial Rehabilitation Act District back in 2015 for the downtown district with the intent of trying to proactively offer this tool for downtown properties. To my understanding, as far as I could not find a policy that was adopted alongside of that. And as we started to look at PA 255, which is another commercial tax abatement program that has some kind of unique benefits compared to PA 210, we thought that it made sense to put together a policy to also, to govern both of these programs, given that they're pretty similar and that their anticipated application would be the same. So, without getting into all of the specific details, PA 210 and 255 function similarly to what you all may have experienced with PA 198 abatements, in that they require the creation of a district and approval of the issuance of a certificate. I believe PA 210 is 1 to 10 years, and PA 255 can be 1 to 12 years. There are also specific restrictions with each one. 255 you can use within downtown development authority districts only, as opposed to kind of anywhere. PA 210 you can actually use for qualifying commercial facilities anywhere within a qualifying community. So they're very kind of variable and useful tools, and they have some other kind of nuances that are better elaborated within your agenda packet. Given the the viability of using PA 210 and 255 specifically, for a couple downtown projects that we've talked about lately, we thought it would make sense to bring you all a policy to govern those. This policy looks different, has different kind of criteria that we're recommending, i.e. a lower capital investment threshold. Commercial projects tend to be smaller, so a $5 million threshold may not be relevant for rehabilitation of a single older storefront. There's just kind of nuance there. And looking at other examples from other communities, we didn't find not a lot of communities use these tools, but from the examples we found, we tried to shape a policy that is presented for you all tonight. There's also a little bit less of a focus on job creation because downtown businesses tend not to be your kind of base employers where you're looking to bring in 100 people to fill a 2,000 square foot storefront. We're focusing more on businesses that fit a need for the community or fill a troubled space or are part of bringing a development that we have otherwise been unable to bring to town. So the main difference of kind of bringing this forward is this policy would apply to both programs, but we are not recommending proactively creating a PA 255 district as was done for PA 210. And the main reason is that it's simply just more work to maintain. It doesn't make a functional difference in the speed at which you can review and consider potential abatements for projects. So we felt it was cleaner to just have this policy in place and treat 255 abatements the same way that you all look at 198 abatements. And then in the future, we may look to dissolve the current 210 district just because some of those parcels that were in the district no longer exist. They've been split, they've been combined. It's a little bit messier. So I apologize for getting into the minutia. There's a lot of work that went into this. The Tax Abatement Review Committee did review this in May and ultimately recommended approval for you all tonight. And happy to answer any other questions.
Deputy Mayor Resnick?
Thank you. Assistant City Manager Benson, so for the 255, any of the downtown areas within the VCA district, so that would include the Renton development, any of the vacant PUDA properties. I also noticed that there's a lot that's west of Total Sports, adjoining Wixom Road, that's got the hash marks in your sketch. Is that included as well?
That would be eligible, I believe, for PA 210. It would not be eligible for 255 because that parcel is not within the DDA district.
That one is not.
Correct.
So it kind of gets carved out there.
Yes.
All right. But the other properties like PUDA, Woodson Market, and the ones adjoining the BP station all would be eligible.
Correct.
Thank you.
Councilmember Gatchel?
Thank you. Did you have a differently colored, we have the electronic version, just a black and white?
Yeah.
I couldn't,
Yeah, it was hard
I
to
couldn't
tell.
make sense of where I was on that map. And
all the lines.
Yeah, that's the only one, but the others looked like they had different colors and they just all came as black, so.
I apologize for that. I see that in the digital version now.
No worries. With this and having different districts and whatnot, my worry, or I guess my concern or thought is if we might be better served by having a different, we have a district for the VCA, or is there a way to offer a even lower threshold for abatements within the VCA, and then this 250, I'm talking existing buildings at this point, but offer a lower threshold for VCA existing buildings, kind of, and then everything else at 250 for existing. That way we're incentivizing maintaining a vibrant downtown area.
Understood. That would probably, honestly, that's a good thing to consider as a part of the policy. That would be the right place to put it. At this point, I would have to look at specific projects, but I don't think there's going to be a lot of circumstances where someone will seek a tax abatement for a project that was less than that threshold anyways. In reality, these tools, there's a reason we haven't brought a PA 210 before you all before. They're complicated, there's a lot that goes into them, and for your average smaller maintenance project, it just doesn't really make sense to do the legwork. But I do understand your point.
In a sense, I agree. It's just my concern, and I can't think, like, if somebody was going to lease a storefront across the street, you'd be crazy to pour $250,000 into one of those. realistically. So I don't foresee that coming out, but then it becomes a little bit exclusionary where we're offering, our downtown is mostly made up of our like mom and pop or family owned businesses, and we're, by way of this, excluding them from receiving any help if they want to remodel. Like if somebody moves out and they want to remodel, they're excluded from getting help. But if you're Mr. Big Corporation and you're going to move from Novi here and it's going to be a quarter-mile change for you, we can offer you a 10-year tax abatement sort of thing. It seems like we're incentivizing bigger businesses, which is great. We want those employees, and I'm glad that we're cracking down on remote employees, because I know we discussed that on the last one, but I don't want to, in the policy, exclude potentially helping a family-run business, and that whether it's now or something we revisit in a few meetings, and maybe that's something everyone else thinks about or has comment on, but if we can figure out a way to help out smaller businesses in the VCA rather than setting the number at a kind of an exclusionary point where it is now.
Understood. I would say for the types of situations that you're talking about, there are other tools that are probably more applicable than the tax abatement. One of the other pieces as part of this policy is the goal is to provide incentives for projects that ultimately provide a net revenue improvement for the city and or the DDA, the city by extension. Those renovation projects tend, there's not a significant impact there anyways, and really what we see other communities do is look at things like facade grants or match on main grants through Oakland County. There are tools that are kind of better fit for those. So I guess in my experience, I don't foresee that to be a confounding factor here. And more importantly, as we talked about with PA 198, these are guardrails really for us and for applicants, but you all still have flexibility to review projects as they make sense. So there could be something, let's say it's a project that's slightly below the capital threshold, but has a significant impact, or putting a brand new facade on a building that's looked horrible for years. Pick the example. There are still circumstances where we can bring those to the tax abatement review committee and to you all by extension.
So we're not stating in the policy that if you don't hit 250 for an existing property, we're not even going to discuss it?
No, it doesn't say that. It does say that is the minimum threshold, but I guess what I'm saying is, those are the guardrails for us. There are still circumstances where a special circumstance, specific project, through I guess our own discretion may bring forward. But again, I guess it's hard for me to imagine the specific scenario here that you're talking about.
Is there any, I guess just to so the wording says the proposed project must feature a total investment. Is there any way to change the must to a should, or we would like, recommended? Yep, that's a good one. Just something that, I don't want to have people be excluded just because they haven't met that threshold. And like you said, right now it's tough to imagine what might come up in that price amount in the VCA, but you never know what'll happen in the future.
Sure, I'm totally comfortable making that minor adjustment to the policy, soften that language.
Do I need a motion to change must to recommended? No, we'll just make a change to it. Okay.
Councilmember Grenlund Fox?
So I like where you're going, Councilman Gatchell. But there are tools to assist. I know you had said, Mr. Benson, that there are, through the county, there's different tools, through the state, through the EDC. Do we name those organizations in this policy, or does staff simply, if one of our smaller businesses, family-owned businesses, comes to us, do we recommend the state or the county's resources to them? And
yes.
If so, do we put that in the policy, or how does it work?
I wouldn't recommend putting them in the policy, primarily because programs change. If we were to list them, it would be listing the specific programs that are available. They change all the time, but we do have. Yeah, I guess I would say it's not necessary as part of the policy. I mean, that's part of the conversations that we have, on a regular basis. Laura and I do on a.
So you make them aware of
Yes.
different tools. Perfect. Thank you.
And we do have them listed on our website. So we have a webpage specifically that discusses different programs and provides links to those websites, so then I don't have to maintain what they're offering. And then it also has our policies and programs of what we offer.
Anybody else? You good? All right, seeing none, I got a motion and a second to approve the recommendation from the Tax Abatement Review Committee to adopt the policy for consideration of PA 210 and PA 255 commercial tax abatements dated June 13th, 2023. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. New business number 4 is a recommendation to authorize the execution of a professional service agreement with Laura Cloutier to provide services for the Downtown Development Authority as Executive Director in the amount of $55,000 annually with a term to expire June 30th, 2027. Approved the associated budget amendment and authorized the mayor and city manager to sign the agreement. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Support.
All right, Mr. Benson, and also with us tonight is Chairman Russ Meredith of the DDA.
Thank you, Mayor. I will be brief and hand this off to Chairman Meredith. The long story short is the DDA has recommended a new contract for Ms. Cloutier to serve as the DDA Executive Director. This would be a 4-year term that's more open-ended in terms of, it functions a little bit more like an at-will agreement, where both parties have the option to terminate with no additional kind of financial burdens, 30-day notice. There is a provide for an increase in compensation and also an increase in hours from 25 hours a week to 30 hours a week. It specifies some more specific timelines for her performance appraisals twice a year, as well as what her reporting requirements are, and also provides an allowance for the contractor under the direct supervision of the city manager's office to expend up to $1,500 a month without prior DDA board authorization for DDA-related expenses, which she then has to report back to the board. These were all, to address operational concerns since her first contract, which City Council and the DDA approved 3 years ago. From there, I'll invite Mr. Meredith to talk about what the process was to get to this recommendation.
The process was, thank you, Mr. Benson. The process was that the executive committee consists of myself, Deputy Chair Osborne, the mayor, city manager, and deputy city manager had 2 meetings over a period of a couple of weeks to review Ms. Cloutier's work, to take a look at what we wanted in the city manager and what we felt we needed to put into a contract to continue the position. We decided she had showed clear growth in the position over the last couple of years and a potential for additional growth over the years to come. We decided to extend it out to 4 years to make it open-ended like that, because that will set with the DDA sunsetting in 27. Should the city decide, the council decide to extend the DDA longer, that'll give you a chance and the board a chance at that time to take a look at the incumbent at that point's skill set and see if it marries up with what the city has envisioned for a new DDA that goes forward from there. So that's pretty much how we got to that. We decided that the compensation would go up along with the number of hours, and that seemed reasonable to us. Questions? I'll entertain any questions as best I can.
Councilmember Garland Fox.
So I see it's a 10% increase.
Yes.
Is that for the entire length of the contract?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I
So
fully
it's
understand.
a 10% increase going from where
Where it was
the salary
this year.
is now to where it will go, right?
So it's for this year, and it'll be reviewed on whatever process the city usually handles for pay changes.
Yeah, so that her compensation for future years will be reviewed and recommended by the DDA as part of the budgeting process. That is part of why we created the multiple review points, is to have built-in points to review her compensation and have that conversation.
So the salary would be reviewed annually?
Correct.
So the 10% isn't for the full 4 years, that's just a one-time 10% increase?
And that goes along with the 20% increase in hours going for the same, that goes into effect immediately as well.
Thank you.
And that's a minimum number of hours.
That's
That's the
minimum hours.
expected minimum number of hours on average.
Councilmember Behrman.
Okay, that was actually my question. giving her an increase of 20% more hours required, but only a compensation increase of 10%. Was there something more that went into that factor, or is that just what the contractor asked for and we provided?
I can speak to that a little bit better. Part of that decision-making process with the executive committee was related to Ms. Cloutier did receive a compensation increase with her last renewal extension last year, but there was no change to the amount of hours. So, we recognized that there was, additional work that the board would like to see her do, but factoring in that raise that had already happened, we tried to basically come together also through a negotiation process, and these were the numbers that we came to that all parties felt comfortable with, factoring in, more than just the last calendar year.
Okay, so it was more than just this one agreement that got those numbers. That makes sense. Thank you.
Anybody else? Deputy Mayor Resnick.
Just clarification then so the annual increases in years 2, 3, and 4 will be tied to the KPIs and the performance reviews
Yes.
that get conducted by the committee.
Yes, those recommendations will be tied to that.
Okay.
Councilmember Sharp?
Thank you, Mayor. Just to refresh my memory, who does the executive director work for on a day-to-day basis? Is there operationally, is it city manager? Or?
Yeah, so functionally she reports to the city manager. More often her and I work together most closely. I would say I have kind of the day-to-day oversight and working with Steve, and then she also provides her bi-weekly reports and has regular meetings with the chair and vice chair.
All right, thank you.
So it's a DDA in the city manager's office, essentially.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? All right, seeing none, I got a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to authorize the execution of a professional service agreement with Laura Cloutier to provide services for the Downtown Development Authority as Executive Director in the amount of $55,000 annually with a term to expire June 30th, 2027. Approve the associated budget amendment and authorize the mayor and city manager to sign an agreement. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Very good. Okay, thanks, Chair Meredith. New business number 5 is a recommendation to renew a 2-year professional service agreement with for information technology support services with BPI Information Systems of Southfield, Michigan, with the funding allocated from account number 101-228-801.282 IT support. Approve the associated budget amendment and authorize the mayor to sign the agreement. Do I have a motion? So moved.
Support.
Mr. Benson.
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry, this is a lot in a row, but so the city has worked with BPI Information Systems since they were selected in a competitive bidding process in 2017. Their initial 3-year term expired, and we've been on year-to-year extension since then. With the cybersecurity assessment and all of the work that we've been doing related to the city's information systems over the last year and our work with UHY, we've been looking at kind of what the future of the system looks like, and obviously, that involves the future of our relationship with BPI Information Systems as our IT services provider. You'll notice the next agenda item is a conversation about doing a network redesign project, and I would say that these two agenda items are very closely related and is a key factor to why the recommendation is to execute a 2-year services agreement with BPI Information Systems. We would like to, have that kind of security of working through that project and, working with the same vendor. As a whole, city management has been very satisfied with the services that BPI Information Systems has provided for us over the years. Their work in the cybersecurity assessment was, I would say, invaluable. So that was a big part of looking to do this extension. I would also say that given that this particular service was bid out within the last 10 years, we still feel that the price is fair and competitive. This particular agreement calls for 4% increases this year and an additional 4% next year. And that is obviously a factor and a reflection of the increased costs that I'm sure that they're experiencing. But in total, we found that to be reasonable. Only required, unfortunately, we under budgeted our kind of expected increase slightly by $1,002. So we would request the associated budget amendment for this coming fiscal year. And if you have any additional questions about the service contract, I'd be happy to answer. And we also have Zach Palmer from BPI, who can potentially answer questions as well.
Any questions? Deputy Mayor Resnick.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Zach, welcome back to the podium.
Good to be back.
The question I had was, I was reading through the contract and the regular business hours. Now, I noticed I've come in sometime during the day and Will's over at the desk there by Deanna.
Yep.
And is he there Monday through Thursday or Monday through Friday then?
So he is not on site full-time, but typically he is here 4 days a week.
Okay.
We also have Ethan who helps out with Wixom. I'm not sure if you met Ethan around, but he's another guy that we'll bring out here if needed. A lot of the stuff they can do remotely. Obviously, they like to be on site and be able to help people out while they're here.
But
So.
DPW is in there on Friday. He's at least
Yep,
remotely
yeah.
available.
Yep, exactly. Full-time, remotely available. And typically, like I said, they're here 3 or 4 times a week, or try to be to make sure they're, something they have to tackle in person, make sure it gets done.
Well, I have to say that the team's been very responsive since we started the contract, and I've been pleased.
Great to hear. Thank you.
All right, seeing none, I got a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to renew a 2-year professional service agreement for information technology support services with BPI Informational Services or Systems of Southfield, Michigan, with funding allocated from account number 101-228-801.282 IT support. Approve the associated budget amendment and authorize the mayor to sign the agreement. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. New business number 6 is a recommendation to authorize the purchase of professional services to perform an information technology system network and domain redesign from BPI Information Systems Incorporated of Southfield, Michigan for a total cost not to exceed $149,776.32 with funding allocated from City Network Capital Account number 411-283-971.322 and authorize the city manager to sign the agreement. Motion? Move.
Support.
Mr. Benson? It's your last one.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yes, this will be my my last agenda item for you tonight. This agenda item is a follow-up to conversations that we've had during the budgeting process to kind of put this on your radar through recommendations and conversations in different ways. We've recognized the need to update and kind of redesign how the city's network operates. The original infrastructure that was put in place has become dated and has created some limitations in terms of what software, what hardware we can use, as well as what applications that we have access to, which can have performance implications, security implications, and functionality implications. So, we've been working with BPI to sort of identify what the scope of work for a network redesign looked like, what are the pros and what are the cons, and what really we should budget and move forward for. So this amount, $150,000, was budgeted by City Council under capital for this project, and before you is a not-to-exceed amount quote from BPI to do this work. This is, I would say, a long-term project. They estimate at least 6 months. There are kind of service pieces involved with this and potential service interruptions where we will be moving data from one system to another. We'll also be transferring in, bringing online or upgrading different hardware pieces. So it will be a pretty involved project, both in terms of the assets that we'll need to buy, as well as the man hours needed to do it. I'll invite Mr. Palmer to speak a little more on what was provided.
Yeah, so essentially I kind of refer to your central nervous system with this, and it kind of controls your entire body and where it's going. If you kind of get old, if that gets older, things aren't going to react in time, you're not going to be able to upgrade, stay up to date on things. Mm-hmm. This is going to update the entire central nervous system of Wixom. It's going to allow new updates, new software. It's going to have new switches involved, new firewalls, which helps with the cybersecurity side of things. But overall, it's just going to improve productivity across Wixom and fix a lot of those problems that we had when we went through that I think it was the cybersecurity or what that was. So it's much needed. Typically, it's 20 years or so is when the big updates happen. I think we're over that time limit, and we've put together a great outline on what we're going to do and why it's important. And I think it'll be very helpful to Wixom, and more importantly on the cybersecurity side of things.
Deputy Mayor Resnick.
Thank you. Zach, one last question for me then. I know that, we talked about the penetration testing and the cybersecurity threat assessments and external threats. A lot of times it points to outdated or flaws in the overall network. And being that it's 20 years old, the current infrastructure is a hodgepodge collection of doing this at fire, doing this at DPW, doing this at police. So I'm very much in support of that. One of the questions I had in terms of business continuity, though, are you going to run concurrently, old and new, as you're migrating the data, or is it going to be?
It'll be a process. We'll outline that entire calendar throughout this probably six-month process. So our plan to do it is to do it outside of business hours as well, to reduce any downtime that's going to be occurring. But with a lot of this stuff, we are able to do it in pieces, and it'll work simultaneously with what's there now. Obviously, once we get everything completed, it's going to be a lot more functional, and we'll be able to work with it. It'll be high functioning. We have the ability to help it or make it function with what's there now in the meantime until we can get everything installed.
Right, so there will be some concurrency in running with the existing legacy system while the new one's being brought up.
Yep, exactly. And we've actually done a couple of the servers already that have, we've come in and gotten approved, and we're installing those. So that's a jump start to it. Those servers are going to be brand new, and they're going to function great with all this, all the new hardware that we're putting in.
Councilmember Sherp.
Thank you, Mayor. Between Mr. Palmer and maybe city manager or assistant city manager, can you remind me how we got to a $150,000 budget in April, and the estimate here is $149,776? The hard cost, the hardware, okay, we need 97,000 maybe, I don't know. The softer costs, the hours, to come up to $24 of the budgeted amount is surprising.
I'm not going to disagree with you on that front, but what I'll say is that this is a conversation, a project that we've been talking about for 4 months. So it was, we were not, putting those budgeted numbers together kind of blindly.
Okay.
Even at that time, we had a rough idea of what it would look like. It was really about refining what the proposal will look like. The other piece of this is that this will be built on a time and materials basis. So it's not, it's not just $149,000. No matter how many hours it takes or what materials we do or don't buy. So I'd say that $149,776 is really a very fine-tuned, number that we got to, put the round number in the budget. But we didn't have that number specifically locked down. I know we were still going back and forth on drafts of what this will look like. But like I said, time and materials basis, we were prepared for this.
So they'll be keeping track of the hours, and if it comes in more, we could potentially, if they run into some problems, although not to exceed, I assume would have to come back to council, or depending on the amount, if it's under $10,000 exceeding, that would be something, I don't know, I'll leave that up to you guys. But if it came in under, we can track the billable hours, and its potential will be under $150,000.
Correct.
149, so not to exceed. Okay, all right, I'm good, thank you.
Yeah, that's always my goal, is to come in under that. I have faith that we can come in under that and not to exceed that. Some of these hardware were quoted. We like to schedule for inflation on those. So obviously you'll see that time and materials come in. There's a little bit of inflation that's going to go. It's going to go up in a little bit, and we've kind of planned for that. We typically go up by 2% every 6 months or so. Is what those manufacturers are going by. We've done that math, and so yeah, but we have faith that we're gonna come in under that.
Yeah, I know putting together a package like this isn't done overnight, so I assume you've been working on it a while. You know what's needed, certainly from a hardware perspective. I guess, BPI's experience, you probably have some good databases. You know how long it takes to do a certain amount of hardware install and design and system design. So I understand that. It's just $150,000 to come in $224 and $223.68. Pretty remarkable. But okay, I'm good. Thank you.
Councilmember Smiley.
Did you say something, Steve?
No,
Oh.
I'm just saying, no, he got to the exact figure that I was going to teasingly say. It's not $24, it's $23.68. So,
Just a little question. It really doesn't have anything to do with my support for this. BP has done a great job, and I'm sure they'll do a great job with this too. Does this particular business item fall under the no bid and the issues that pop up with that? Like it has to be unanimous and that kind of thing?
professional services contracts don't have to be bid out, so it's
Oh.
we call this professional services contract, so that's how it's being done.
That's right, okay.
Yeah.
That was just, thank you.
Anybody else? All right, seeing none, I have a recommendation to authorize the purchase of professional services to perform an information technology system network and domain redesign from BPI Information Systems Incorporated of Southfield, Michigan for a total cost not to exceed $149,776.32 with funding allocated from City Network Capital Account number 411-283-971.322 and authorize the city manager to sign the agreement. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Good. Thanks, Mr. Palmer.
Have a great night.
Have a good night.
Thanks, Zach.
New business number 7 is a recommendation to consider adoption of a revised resolution to place a charter amendment on the November 7th, 2023 general election ballot to amend Chapter 4.11E to change the term of office for appointees to council positions to the unexpired term of the position. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
City Manager Brown.
So as you know, we previously voted at a prior council meeting on April 11th to have a resolution placed before the voters in relation to this charter amendment that would address this specific chapter 4.11E, changing the term of office for appointees to council positions. We've had experiences in the past where we've made an appointment to fill a vacant position, and the way the charter read previously, it created another period of time where there was another existing vacancy that would be created between when the term for the replacement appointed person expired and when the newly elected person, which may or may not be the same person, takes office in January. So we had a charter amendment in mind for a long period of time to address that issue. This was done to address that issue, and long story short as to why we have a revised resolution in front of you is there was one additional piece of feedback that came back from the Attorney General's office that he wanted to have a language added in that referenced the specific chapter. And then when we had to make that change, there were a couple of other slight changes that we made to clarify some things. And we had the report from April 11th that's attached to this package, and then the new resolution that is also attached. And I mentioned in the report that we have the original language on page 2 that was struck out, and in red font that was the changes originally that was reflected to the charter, but there was additional changes to the actual proposal that would be on the ballot that are additionally highlighted in red but without strike through. They're just underlined in this case. So you'll see section 411 is referenced. We clarified the city election in November. And again, we referenced section 4.11E towards the bottom, and then there was a language correction where we replaced that with the. So those are the changes that were added as a result of the additional feedback that we received from the Attorney General's office. So I apologize, but it's just a little bit of a fine tuning that we're looking for before putting it out before the voters. The good news is that we were out in front on this in terms of the timing, and we're still in good shape for that to be a non-issue in terms of all the timing that has to take place with the Attorney General as well as the Governor's office. So the changes are reflected in that red font with the underline of the ballot proposal, and that's the background as to why we're here again with a revised resolution.
Any questions? Councilmember Smiley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You mentioned the timing of getting this, onto the ballot. Do we have anything more we're trying to get on the ballot this year? I can't recall where we're at on the.
All the i's are dotted and t's are crossed on that front, theoretically, except for the, the details that have to happen from here at those other levels.
Okay, gotcha. But we have a total of three resolutions going on the ballot. This is the final one that we needed to button up and.
I'll let the clerk make sure.
I'm pretty sure it's 4.
Four, okay.
We had the original 3, and then we had the safety path millage that we added.
So this is the last one we're trying to get on for this year.
Correct.
And we're all set, okay.
Well, this is just an update to one that city council already approved.
Correct, it's not a new one, it's a redo on one of the original 3.
Oh, it's a redo. So this was on one of the 3 that we already did.
Correct.
So we're up to,
We had a group of 3 that was done, and then we did the safety path millage after that, so we had 4 total.
Oh.
This goes back to one of the original 3 that had to change.
Thanks.
Councilmember Gunn Fox?
It's a lot, I did it.
A little bit.
So the last time, and maybe my memory isn't as good as I think it is, but the last time we talked, I know there was an issue with, was it the male pronoun? Because it affected so many different sections.
Right. That was resolved.
It was resolved.
Yeah, so we're not going to have 30, 40, 50, 60 prints up. That's been resolved.
So that charter amendment will be on the ballot as well.
Correct, as we originally passed it, as you originally passed it, I should say.
Thank you.
Right.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none, I got a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to consider an adoption of the revised resolution to place a charter amendment on the November 7th, 2023 general election ballot to amend Chapter 4.11E to change the term of office for appointees to council positions to the unexpired term of the position. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. That concludes the new business portion of this meeting tonight. Move on to the second call to the public. The rules of call to the public will remain the same as the first, with the exception you can speak whatever's on your mind. Do we have anybody in the audience for the first call to the public?
Russ Meredith, 378 Fletcher. I just wanted to commend your attention to the great work DPW did on cleaning up the Michigan Airline Trail and the path out to the observation deck at the Habitat. The things I use pretty much on a daily basis, and they really look nice, so thank you, Tim and the guys. It's cleaned up very nice. They're excellent resources for our citizens and excellent selling points for the city. So thank you guys for making sure that you have the people to do that. And second, as someone whose central nervous system is clearly aging and starting to age out, I wanted to commend the city, the council and the administration for taking the effort to update the cities, because the central nervous system you're fixing takes care of the body, that's the people out there. So thank you very much.
Anybody else? Seeing none, I'll close the second call to the public. Move on to city manager's comments. City Manager Brown.
Thank you, Your Honor. The city manager update reflects the Parks and Recreation Master Plan that's been put out to the public. It was released on Monday, June 5th, and by Wednesday, June 7th, we had an outstanding return of over 200 people, or approximately 200 people, I shouldn't say over, it was almost 200 survey submissions. It happened by Wednesday, June 7th, so we're very pleased with that. Couldn't get an update on that today because the person that's handling that with our consultants is out of the office, and we're waiting for an update next week on that, so we'll have more information in the future on that. In the meanwhile, we want to do some additional public outreach to try to drive more participation with the survey, which would help us produce a better master plan update for Parks and Recreation. We've got various things listed that we've done or are doing. Social media, city and the DDA, that's been done. City website banner and link, that's been done. E-notifications going out weekly through July 14th, that started and will continue through July 14th. Coverage on the city's digital signs on Pontiac Trail and at the fire department, that's ongoing as well. There's a reference to the development of that banner over Pontiac Trail that we use for a variety of things. That has been ordered and should be available next week, and we will put that up for a period of 2 weeks that will complete and end before that July 14th deadline unless it's extended. So that's not quite there yet. Pop-up banners have been ordered and will be used at Parks and Recreation events and city facilities. As you walked into the council meeting tonight, you might have seen that. We have one of those already in place at City Hall so that people can see that. And then lastly, business card reminders. We produced some business cards we provided at your spots there at the dais for you to use as you run into people. We're seeking to get as much feedback from the public as possible on what they're looking for in terms of parks and recreation amenities and services, so that we can have a master plan update that's going to best serve and provide the things that people are looking for. So whatever you can do to help us out with that, we would appreciate it. Personal appeal to anybody that's a resident or a user of our parks and recreation facilities to please complete that survey. Everything we have has a QR code on it that we've tested and it works. So if you see something with that QR code, you can use that with your smartphone and take the survey that way. You can go to our website at wixomgov.org and see the banner at the top. Click on the link there. You can respond to links that are in our e-notifications, in the social media. There's a variety of ways to participate. We also have hard copies that are available at our city facilities if anybody is interested in that. And I did talk with Deanna McGee today. We have exactly 0 hard copies submitted so far, so people are going along with the online versions, the electronic submissions. So we're looking forward to driving a very good response to that, and we appreciate the people that have already participated, and we appreciate anybody that participates in the future on this because it's going to help us produce a better project. So that's all that I had to say. Please use the cards when you run into people or anything else that you can use to encourage people to respond.
Deputy Mayor Resnick.
Thank you. City Manager Brown, I noticed that like we have it posted in the brewery, but are other local businesses that have a lot of traffic, are they also posting it?
Yeah, we should be trying to reach out to businesses. So
I gave it to all the downtown businesses.
Okay, so they have them on their counters and whatnot?
Or posted on their windows.
Okay, all right.
We've got hard copy surveys at the city's city offices, city manager's office. We've got the cards. We've got all kinds of different things up available for people to see it. That's all that I have.
Yeah,
Wait. Okay. Assistant City Manager Benson?
Thanks, Mayor. You were just looking at me, so I apologize. I didn't wait. No, the only thing I was going to add to what City Manager Brown said is that we are also looking at every opportunity to, get out in front of people to remind them of the opportunity to participate. Whether that's, I know Mayor, you mentioned this at HOA meetings. We're talking about partnerships with the, whether it's the Lakes Area Chamber or the DDA or at concerts in the park, different opportunities. So keep an eye out. We will likely have some other kind of in-person opportunities to promote people to participate.
Yes, so that pop-up banner that I spoke about, we're going to have that at concerts in the park and things like that to encourage people to participate there as well.
Very good. All right, moving on to council comments. Councilmember Brown Fox.
I would like to thank Mr. Philip Carter for his many years of service to the volunteer service to the city of Wixom, as well as all of the residents that you appointed or reappointed tonight. And then I'd also finally like to congratulate the new officers. I'm not going to try to pronounce their last names, but Riley and Jacob. And then congratulations to Sergeant Corey King. Thank you.
Councilmember Gatchell.
Thank you. I wanted to thank everyone that got appointed to our boards tonight and reappointed. Also, thanks to Phil Carter for his many years of service. I remember he and my dad were on planning commission together, and I used to be in elementary and middle school and sit in the crowd and come be bored to death watching them discuss things at planning commission. So Phil has been just a tremendous part of the city and takes with him a ton of knowledge and experience from planning commission. So thanks to him. Also, congratulations to our newest police officers and our newest sergeant. I did mention something to the assistant city manager since I wasn't able to make it to the Renton joint meeting there, but looking at things, if we can look into that being like a LEED certified building or ways to make it more green and sustainable, I think that's kind of the trend we need to start looking at overall as anything kind of gets put before us from now on. And then we talked about ballot initiatives, and the one thing that I've mentioned before and I'm hoping hasn't been written off is discussing the road millage and if we need to put that on the ballot, if it needs to be addressed. Tim, do you know offhand, once Loon Lake is done next year, with Maple getting done this year and Potter getting patched, any guesstimate as to what our pacer rating, will it be significant since we've done a few main roads, or will it still, we won't have any Potter will be the last big project left, right? The rest is neighborhood roads?
Right.
Okay. And some of those are not in great shape, but none are too terrible, are they?
No, well, some of the subdivisions are. So keep in mind that, what do we have, just roughly 50 miles of roads, and the major roads that we have are, what, five of those. So it is increasing the roads by 20%, but yeah, it's a slow process. We also, next year, we're also looking at Cliffs of Loon Lake, so we'll have that subdivision too. And we are making a dent in that, but it'll still be, I think it'll still be below 5 as a whole.
Okay. Right? Thank you. Yeah, that's my only last hope if we're going to put one other thing on the ballot. That I think we need to at least discuss what our funding level is right now, and if it warrants going on the ballot, then that's a result of the discussion. But as the deputy city manager mentioned, I think at the last meeting, and I've been talking about for a while, we need to reach some agreement. That's one we've been kicking down the road and stumbling over the potholes along the way. So that's all I've got. Thank you.
Councilmember Sharp.
Thank you, Mayor. I also want to thank the volunteers on the boards and commissions that were reappointed tonight, and especially Chandra and Mark for sticking out to the bitter end. Thank you. And I know Stephen Hartman was here earlier, but apparently he couldn't hold out. So thank you. Appreciate your service. Also want to comment on the Parks and Rec survey. I actually took it today because I thought I better do that so I know what's going on. And it was just the right length, and it took about 10 minutes, but it did make me think about what I wanted and what we have, and we've got a lot of good facilities here in Wixom. So I'll be really interested to see where the opportunities are going forward, because we have a lot of new stuff, and but it's always good to hear input from everyone else. So hopefully that'll shed some light on opportunities for us. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Very good. Councilmember Behrman.
Thank you. Just want to also echo everyone else's comments regarding all of our volunteers. We couldn't function as a city without our volunteers, so it's really nice to see that we have an almost full slate for all of our boards and commissions. Also, really nice to see our new police officers. It's just amazing that how we're moving them up from within, and it's working. So I'm happy to see that. The only comment I had beyond that was regarding the downtown concerts. They've been really well attended, the two I've been to already. So if you haven't been to those, I'd suggest getting out and attending them. And I do hope that potentially moving forward, we could take a look at what happened with our flowers this year, because they don't appear to be the same size as they were previous years. And we paid a lot more money for them this year than we did last year.
On that real quick. Due to the fluctuation in the weather with the hard freezes that we saw in May, affected the temperatures at the greenhouse. So our flowers got a slower start, and they are fertilizing them once a week and watering them every day, and they have grown significantly since they were installed. And I did speak with the landscaping company today, and they said give them another few weeks and they will be overflowing. So
looking at the contract, they were supposed to be planted by the 15th of May, and it looks like they went up the 1st of June.
They did, because of the hard freezes. They needed, we did not want to put them out and risk them dying and losing that $50,000.
That was a discretionary decision
Yes.
that we participated in to not
Yes.
do it at that point, because we were seeing
It's
some
interesting that a lot of other communities around seem to have flowers that were planted earlier and are blooming, and ours just do not. So I'm just
They're blooming.
maybe
They're
we,
growing.
Maybe we need to look at a different provider moving
And-
forward?
and-
Because
and-
something doesn't seem to be right.
Mr. Benson and I did speak about that the other day, and we will be looking at other providers for the future.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Oh, one more question, sorry.
Yeah.
More for Tim. Is there something wrong with the fountain?
Yes.
There was, yes.
Is it fixed?
No. Yes.
Well, it will be fixed.
Okay.
Yeah, we had some electrical issues with the fountain as of late. We had to rewire from the meter all the way back into the vault. And then the last thing we had, there was a magnetic switch that isn't operating properly, so we're waiting on that, and then we can put that back into service.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Smiley.
Thank you, Mayor Beagle. A few different things. Some of it's repetitive, I understand, but I want to make sure I just want to say, thank you to Commissioner Carter for 20-plus years. It was very nice meeting the new officers, Riley and Jacob, as well as our new sergeant. Last week, Sergeant Brian Stawinski retired for 25 years, so I want to wish him well and thank him for his years of service here. And on a sadder note, condolences to Sergeant Mahala on the passing of his grandfather recently. Glad to see Ms. Cloutier be around for a little bit longer. Congratulations on that today. And kids got out of school today. Even some adults got out of school today for our dear mayor here.
Some for
his
longer than
last day of
others.
school.
School's out forever.
Forever. Congratulations on your retirement. Thank you. And I think all that's left is Happy Father's Day this Sunday to all you dads. Thank you.
Thanks. Deputy Mayor Resnick.
Thank you, Mayor. Would also like to thank wholeheartedly Phil Carter for his 20 years of volunteerism. He's been a great asset to the city in that capacity. And all the new appointees, and again, Chandra and Mark hanging in here. This is very rare. We'd like to see more often, too. The congratulations to our new officers, Riley and Jacob, and congratulations, Corey King, on his promotion to sergeant. Also would like to thank Deanna and Kathy for the picnic last week. That was a very nice picnic prior to the concert, well attended, and it's always good to sit with some of the other boards and commissions and meet people that may be new to some of those boards. It's always very encouraging to see the level of involvement now with some of the young families and all. Also, like to say, school's out, so as you're making those left-hand turns off of Wixom onto Charms or Potter, watch both ways for those bike paths, because there will be a lot more bicycle and pedestrian traffic on it from now on. Also, have really enjoyed the last two concerts that we've had. It's been great weather, well attended. One of the questions I wanted to ask to Mr. Sikma, though, a couple comments that I heard from the crowd last week was the food trucks and the ice cream trucks have portable generators that are running, gasoline-fired ones, that are constantly going, and the fumes kind of waft through the crowd a little bit. I know we have electrical underneath the benches that sometimes go on,
Right.
if you know where the box is.
Yeah.
And is there any way we could have those food trucks, strategically positioned so they could get electrical from someplace?
I did hear a little bit about that this last week, and we will look into that.
Okay.
We'll try and get that.
I know it's a trip hazard if we actually put an extension cord across, but I know they have these trip strips
Yep.
now where it could work.
We'll look into something safely and a little less aromatic.
Thank you. And that's all I have.
All right, and I want to thank Phil Carter for his 20 years of volunteerism to the city, and I want to also congratulate and thank all the new appointments and reappointments to all the council committees that we have in the city. Congratulations to our newest officers, Juracek and Bloink, and congratulations to Sergeant King. And I'd like to thank our clerk for helping me out this meeting with all those appointments and stuff like that. She helped out a great deal. I really appreciate it. Thank you. And with that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you, guys. Have a great night. Have a great weekend.